You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
This episode is brought to you by the world's first reposado from Tequila Herradura. Made with slow-cooked, hand-harvested agave sealed into oak barrels and aged 11 months. Before being enjoyed in your glass. Experience the world's first reposado, Tequila Herradura. Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Tequila Herradura. 40% alcohol by volume. Imported by Brown-Forman, Louisville, Kentucky. Herradura is a registered trademark. Copyright 2025 Brown-Forman Corporation.
CISA issues an emergency directive to urgently patch a critical vulnerability in Microsoft Exchange hybrid configurations. SoupDealer malware proves highly evasive. Google patches a Gemini calendar flaw. A North Korean espionage group pivots to financial crime. Russia's RomCom exploits a WinRAR zero-day. Researchers turn Linux-based webcams into persistent threats. The Franklin Project enlists volunteer hackers to strengthen cybersecurity at U.S. water utilities. The DoD announces the winners of DARPA's 2-year AI cyber challenge. The U.S. extradites Ghanaian nationals for their roles in a massive fraud ring. Our guest is Steve Deitz, president of MANTECH's federal civilian sector, with a look at cell-based security operations centers. And AI advice turns dinner into a medical mystery. It's Monday, August 11th, 2025. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your Cyberwire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. Happy Monday. It's great to have you with us. On August 7th, CISA issued an emergency directive requiring federal agencies to urgently patch a critical vulnerability in Microsoft Exchange hybrid configurations. The flaw allows attackers with existing admin access to on-premises Exchange servers to escalate into Microsoft 365 cloud environments. Agencies must act by August 11th, that's today, including assessing servers with Microsoft's Health Checker script, disconnecting unsupported systems, and updating Exchange 2019 or Exchange 2016. They must apply the April 2025 hotfix, transition from legacy shared service principles to dedicated hybrid applications in Entra ID and clean credentials. Agencies must also prepare for Microsoft Graph API adoption as EWS deprecation begins in October. Compliance reports are due to CISA today, and the directive remains active until all security measures are verified. SoupDealer is a highly evasive malware that bypasses most public sandboxes, antivirus tools, and EDR or XDR systems, while targeting Windows systems in Turkey via a geospecific phishing campaign. Distributed through malicious jar files, it uses a 3-stage loader with heavy obfuscation, AES and RC4 encryption, and Tor-based command and control to hide its activity. The malware checks language and location settings to ensure it only runs in Turkey, then exfiltrates data, grants remote access, and spreads via victims' email accounts. Capable of privilege escalation, antivirus evasion, file management, screenshot capture, DDoS attacks, and worm-like propagation, SoupDealer underscores the weakness of cloud sandboxes. Researchers stress the need for on-premises, local dynamic analysis to protect critical infrastructure against such advanced region-targeted threats. Google has patched a flaw in Gemini, its AI assistant integrated into Android, Workspace, and Google Web Services, that allowed malicious Google Calendar invites to trigger remote takeover and data theft. The attack used prompt injection hidden in event titles, which Gemini read when summarizing a user's schedule. This gave attackers access to Gmail, Calendar, Google Home, and device controls, enabling actions like wiping events, extracting emails, tracking location, controlling smart devices, and even joining Zoom calls. The exploit required no special model access, bypassed prompt filtering, and could be staged with up to 6 invites to stay hidden. Discovered by SafeBreach researchers, the bug was fixed before exploitation. Google credited responsible disclosure for accelerating new defenses against such adversarial AI attacks. North Korean hacking group ScarCruft, known for espionage, is now deploying VCD ransomware in attacks targeting South Korea, marking a shift toward financial motives. In July, its Chinopunk subgroup used phishing emails disguised as postal code updates to deliver over 9 types of malware, including Chili Chino variants, data stealers, and the NubSpy backdoor, which hides traffic via PubNub. The campaign combined spying tools with ransomware, reflecting a growing trend of nation-state actors blending espionage and cybercrime to generate revenue under economic sanctions. Russian threat group RomCom, also known as Storm 0978, exploited a WinRAR zero-day in cyber espionage attacks on organizations in Europe and Canada. The path traversal flaw, involving alternate data streams, let attackers craft archives that extract files to attacker-defined locations. Discovered by ESET, the bug was patched on July 30th with a beta fix released July 25th. First seen July 18th, the campaign used spear-phishing emails with malicious archives posing as resumes, targeting financial, defense, manufacturing, and logistics firms. No compromises occurred, but intended payloads included Snipbot, Rusty Claw, and Mythic Agent backdoors. Researchers at Eclipsium have demonstrated how Linux-based webcams can be turned into persistent threats using a technique dubbed BadCam, a variant of the well-known Bad USB attack. Tested on Lenovo 510 FHD and Lenovo Performance FHD web cameras, the method exploits a missing firmware signature validation flaw to reflash the webcam's firmware. Unlike traditional Bad USB, BadCam doesn't require physical access. Attackers with remote code execution on a host can weaponize an attached webcam to reinfect the system even after a full OS reinstall. The flaw can be paired with a Linux kernel vulnerability for host compromise. Lenovo patched the issue in a recent firmware update. Eclipsium warns other Linux-based cameras and USB peripherals may also be at risk. The Franklin Project, launched at DEF CON 2023, enlists volunteer hackers to strengthen cybersecurity at U.S. water utilities, especially small resource-strapped ones. Founded by Jake Braun, the initiative drew overwhelming interest, with 350 volunteers aiding 5 utilities in Indiana, Oregon, Utah, and Vermont at no cost. Tasks included changing default passwords, enabling MFA, asset inventories, OT assessments, and network mapping. Volunteers also educate utilities on nation-state threats, noting incidents like China's Volt Typhoon breaching small systems tied to critical infrastructure. With 50,000 U.S. water utilities and rising attacks from China and Iran, the project is rapidly scaling with partners like Dragos and funding from Craig Newmark Philanthropies to deploy free cybersecurity tools nationwide. In many cases, it's the only protection these utilities have. Last week at DEF CON, the U.S. Defense Department announced Team Atlanta, a collaboration between Georgia Tech, Samsung Research, KAIST, and PostTech, as the winners of DARPA's 2-year AI Cyber Challenge. The competition tasked dozens of teams with building AI systems to automatically detect and patch vulnerabilities in massive code bases, with finalists working on 54 million lines of synthetic code. Team Atlanta earned $4 million for excelling at finding and fixing bugs, blending traditional threat hunting tools with AI. Trails of Bits and Theory placed second and third. Overall, competitors patched 77% of synthetic vulnerabilities, a significant improvement from last year's 37%. DARPA will release most winning tools publicly, with HHS aiming to use them to protect healthcare systems from ransomware. Officials believe these AI-powered methods could transform vulnerability management across critical infrastructure. 3 Ghanaian nationals have been extradited to the U.S. and charged for their role in a massive fraud ring that stole over $100 million through romance scams and business email compromise attacks from 2016 through May of 2023. Operating as high-ranking members of a Ghana-based network, they targeted vulnerable older Americans and U.S. businesses, laundering stolen funds through stateside middlemen. Romance scams involved posing as romantic partners to solicit money, while BEC schemes spoofed company emails to authorize fraudulent wire transfers. 2 of the men allegedly acted as chairmen overseeing operations. Charges include conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and receiving stolen money, with potential sentences of up to 20 years per major count. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Steve Deitz, president of MANTECH's federal civilian sector. We're taking a look at cell-based security operations centers. And AI advice turns dinner into a medical mystery. Stay with us.
I'm Ben Yellen, co-host of the Caveat podcast. Each Thursday, we sit down and talk about the biggest legal and policy developments affecting technology that are shaping our world. Whether it be sitting down with experts or government officials or breaking down the latest political developments, we talk about the stories that will have tangible impacts on businesses and people around the world. If you are looking to stay informed on what is happening and how it can impact you, make sure to listen to the Caveat podcast.
Compliance regulations, third-party risk, and customer security demands are all growing and changing fast. Is your manual GRC program actually slowing you down? If you're thinking there has to be something more efficient than spreadsheets, screenshots, and all those manual processes, you're right. GRC can be so much easier, and it can strengthen your security posture while actually driving revenue for your business. You know, one of the things I really like about Vanta is how it takes the heavy lifting out of your GRC program. Their trust management platform automates those key areas: compliance, internal and third-party risk, and even customer trust, so you're not buried under spreadsheets and endless manual tasks. Vanta really streamlines the way you gather and manage information across your entire business. And this isn't just theoretical. A recent IDC analysis found that compliance teams using Vanta are 129% more productive. It's a pretty impressive number. So what does it mean for you? It means you get back more time and energy to focus on what actually matters, like strengthening your security posture and scaling your business. Vanta, GRC. Just imagine how much easier trust can be. Visit vanta.com/cyber to sign up today for a free demo. That's vanta.com/cyber.
Abercrombie's viral denim sale is back, and Spotify listeners get an extra 15% off with code SpotifyAF. Abercrombie is known for their denim. With 30 to 50% off all jeans, find out how denim should fit. Shop the viral denim sale in the Abercrombie app, online, or in stores. Valid in stores and online through August 11th, 2025 in U.S. and Canada. Excludes clearance, price reflects discount. Code valid in U.S. and Canada through August 11th, 2025. Exclusions apply. See details online.
Steve Deitz is president of MANTECH's federal civilian sector, and in today's sponsored Industry Insights segment, we take a look at cell-based security operations centers.
The cyber landscape is rapidly evolving these days, and most federal government agencies are requiring more scalable, resilient, and secure digital environments that can support mission delivery and withstand persistent cyber threats. SOCs are one of those things that are necessary in the government. They are the front line to defending against cyber threats and a really key part of national security. And so in MANTECH, we're always looking to advance and innovating and investing in new approaches in cybersecurity, because at our core is a company and the people, the patriots that support us within MANTECH, we are committed to securing our nation and securing the future. You alluded to it. We're going to be talking about our Security Operations Center and how we operate in this model. And the expertise in cybersecurity that we have is fundamentally driving some really good outcomes for our federal clients and their missions.
Well, before we get to the details of this notion of cell-based SOCs, can you explain for us, what are some of the challenges that the folks who are running the SOCs, who are working in the SOCs, what are the day-to-day pain points for them?
Basically, a SOC is an operations center, so they are monitoring the network activity, and the data is enormous. The data that they have to analyze real time, decide what is a threat, what is not a threat, what is a false positive. It's managing that vast amount of data that these SOC folks, that we'll get into a little bit later, these SOC folks have to deal with every day, and missing one could mean the impact of finding a threat, finding somebody in a network, giving them a day in the network versus giving them an hour in the network. It's very key that these SOC analysts are on their toes in identifying these threats as quickly as possible so that they can isolate them, sometimes study them to find out how they got in and what we can do to better prevent those types of activities.
So is it fair to say it's a combination of a high-pressure situation potentially, but also a lot of signal-to-noise issues with, as you say, the kind of fire hose of data that constantly comes in?
It absolutely is. And a lot of that kind of turning down the fire hose is really figuring out those tools to identify the data. Every environment's different. Every situation is different. And finding those right tools to make sure that information is being culled out appropriately.
So you and your colleagues at MANTECH have taken a look at this and come up with some ways that you believe you can improve the operations of a security operations center. What can you share with us?
So the traditional SOC is set up, as you might expect. It comprises of a tiered system. So Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 1 is typically made up of junior employees, those front lines that are taking the tickets, monitoring the activity, escalating issues to Tier 2. That second tier typically would have a few more years of experience and are mainly focused on incident response. And then Tier 3 is made up of mostly those very experienced and advanced cyber professionals. There are a few issues with this setup that we have identified, specifically the significant delays in handoff between tiers, so wait for Tier 2 to pick it up. Next, the least experienced people are making critical decisions. So that frontline Tier 1 analyst is making some very critical decisions. Also, because of that handoff delay, there are typically case backlogs, so not processing things as quickly. And then obviously, in most high-stress, high-tempo jobs, there's high turnover. MANTECH's approach to this is what we call cell-based SOCs. And what it does is it functionally aligns Tier 1, 2, and 3 into what we call a cell together so that they can work cohesively and more efficiently and effectively on those issues. Each cell is responsible for delivering an outcome of measurable value rather than simply a piece of that outcome. What this looks like practically is a single detection cell responsible for real-time responses. This team is responsible for seeing the tickets through the entire life cycle to resolution instead of handing it off as it's typically done, and as we talked about in the tiered system. This cell-based model creates a more efficient workflow, increases situational awareness, enhances learning and career development for those SOC analysts, and ultimately minimizes resolution times, which is critical in a SOC, ultimately helping agencies become more secure.
Well, help me understand here. So let's say that I have experience in a traditional SOC, and our group decides that we're going to adopt this cell-based approach here. What's going to change for me and my team?
So operationally, first of all, we have a whole process that we go through, because this is almost a cultural change within a SOC. It is not an overnight flip the switch, you're magically in a cell-based SOC. We have a process of retraining people, of setting expectations, of organizing, finding the talent, and also evaluating the tools within the SOC and making sure that we have the tools aligned appropriately with the various cells that we set up. And this really creates a more value add job for the employees in the SOC, because they aren't just surrounded by tier 1 people. They're now surrounded by tier 2 and tier 3 people, and actually training and learning becomes even quicker to get to those next levels.
So is it a situation where, for example, if I'm a tier 1 person and I think that something requires the attention of the tier 2 and tier 3 people, in a normal SOC, I would flag that, it would go on its way, and I might never see it again?
That's correct.
And in this case, you're saying that I would have more of a view of that through its entire life cycle?
That's right. That's right. The whole cell would have a view through its entire life cycle.
I see. Is there any particular scaling of the cells themselves that you all have so far found to be effective? Like how many people in a group seems to work, or does that vary with every organization?
It varies with the types of cells we set up in every organization,
Okay.
depending on the environments.
What are the outcomes here? You've experimented with this and you've decided that you're getting good results.
Mm-hmm.
What do those good results look like?
So first and foremost, the model is designed to unlock, as we've talked about, the full potential of our human capital and empower and align our people to the outcomes that we want them to see and enable them to unleash their ingenuity. The cell-based model itself is radically more efficient than the traditional tiered model. We've proven this over and over again. I mean, we've been running cell-based SOCs for 8 to 10 years now in various customer agencies. So we have hard data to show that this is the right way to run a SOC. This is the next generation of SOC operations. We've driven costs down for our customers for running a SOC, and we've improved the actual security outcomes, minimizing false positives. And in the age of serious budget pressures, it's simply not sustainable to continue to throw more and more people at the tier 1, tier 2, at the problem. Instead, we're helping our employees move up the value chain by providing focus, empowerment, and accountability. The cell-based SOC is transformational for federal agencies. We've seen this over and over. And it's an example of how MANTECH is always advancing our client's mission by increasing our nation's security posture with models like this cell-based SOC. MANTECH's providing more efficient, reliable federal cybersecurity and enabling federal employees to focus on their core mission, maximizing the business value and lowering long-term operational costs.
Can you explain for us what the transition looks like? If we're running a traditional SOC and we decide this is what we want to adopt, what are we in for to make this switch over?
Again, it varies. I'm going to say that again.
Sure, fair enough.
Depending on the environment.
Right.
But it would typically begin with us taking over the SOC as is. And then it would be a assessment period where we would send our cell-based SOC SMEs into the environment, working with the government folks and working with our team to understand how the SOC works and what types of things that they are looking for in that environment. Then we would provide some recommendations, a ton of training to the staff, likely a reorganization of how the SOC is structured. And then we'd implement. And, that process could take, a month, could take 6 months, depending on how complex the environment is.
Steve, we know how much everybody loves change. What about the employees themselves? I mean, how do you shepherd them through the process so that they're not afraid, because ultimately we want them to see that it's going to be a good outcome, but those transitional periods can be hard.
Exactly. So we have stories to tell them. And also, once we tell them these stories of how we've implemented this and done this very effectively, and actually we can bring in people that have done this to talk to the employees. And once we get through that initial, oh my gosh, we got a big change coming, they start to see the real value, and not only the real value to the mission that they're supporting, but the real value to them, because we do focus on, as I mentioned, developing that whole employee and get them up the value chain so that they become more valuable.
That's Steve Deitz, president of MANTECH's Federal Civilian Sector.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Checking off the boxes on your to-do list is a great feeling. And when it comes to checking off coverage, a State Farm agent can help you choose an option that's right for you. Whether you prefer talking in person, on the phone, or using the award-winning app, it's nice knowing you have help finding coverage that best fits your needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
And finally, in a medical misadventure equal parts tragic and absurd, a 60-year-old man landed in the ER with hallucinations, convinced his neighbor was poisoning him. The culprit was himself, courtesy of dietary advice he'd half understood from ChatGPT. Determined to eliminate chloride from his diet, he swapped table salt for sodium bromide, a fine choice if you're an epileptic dog or a swimming pool, but less so for humans. 3 months later, he had full-blown bromism, a disorder so vintage it peaked in the 1800s. The AI had technically suggested bromide as a replacement, but failed to say, "Don't eat this." The man recovered after 3 hospital-bound weeks, and OpenAI now promises safe completions to prevent such culinary chemistry experiences from ending in 19th century diseases. And that's the Cyberwire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment on Jason and Brian's show every week. You can find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed. We'd love to hear from you. We're conducting our annual audience survey to learn more about our listeners. We're collecting your insights through the end of August. There's a link in the show notes. Please do check it out. N2K's senior producer is Alice Carruth. Our CyberWire producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Trey Hester with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilby is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.